Trojan War is said to be the most important event in Greek mythology. It is written in many different Greek literatures, but is said to be the most notable in Homer's Iliad. The Trojan War was a war waged by the Achaeans on Troy after Paris stole the wife of Menelaus, Helen, from them. We plan on discussing DeWall's ideas from his book, Good Nature, on morality. The idea is, are the topics discussed in the Iliad used for selfish reasoning or for community gain? When looking at the start of the war, one might ask why Menelaus sent so many men to Troy for one woman. Also, some might ask why he sent men for such a personal issue. These are questions that we are going to discuss during this documentary.
DeWall discusses the need for relationships amongst apes a lot in his book. He writes, "This pattern may seem counterintuitive, but no one knows how strongly these animals rely on each other. They just cannot afford alienation." How did relationships in Iliad affect the characters' decisions? Can you discuss how, when looking at specific character relationships, how ideas of humane selfishness and human reliance are portrayed?
When considering relationships in the Iliad, one major relationship we have to look at is in between Agamemnon and Achilles. They both clearly represent what DeWall speaks about in his book. In Good Nature, DeWall writes a lot about how prevalent relationships were amongst monkeys and how they can explain our natural behaviors. He writes, "It was their relationship that caught my attention. I saw dominance, order, kinship, bonds, alliances, and rivalries among my monkeys. These are all characteristics of different relationships in Iliad."
In Iliad, the relationship between Agamemnon and Achilles is one of selfish nature. Throughout the epic, you see Agamemnon and Achilles using each other for their own selfish gain. Agamemnon, in particular, uses Achilles to get his own gifts, prizes, honor for winning wars, yet he sits back and not uses his own fighting ability to win these wars. In Book 1, Agamemnon states to Achilles, "You may be a good man in a fight, Achilles, and look like a god, but don't try to pull one over on me. It won't work." Agamemnon is aware that Achilles has a lot of followers as well as support by the Greek army. In order to keep himself in command, he threatens to take away Achilles' beloved prize, Briseis. In response to this, Achilles states, "You sorry profiteering excuse for a commander, and now you are threatening to take away my prize that I sweated for and the Greeks gave to me. No, I do all the dirty work and with my own hands, and when the battle is over we divide the loot, you get the lion's share, and I go back to the ship."
You could argue that the two men were being selfish, but in reality they were just protecting their men. Yes, Achilles decided not to fight when all the Greeks were dying, but he was protecting his own army. He wanted them to go home because he realized this wasn't his war and it wasn't worth him risking their lives. So he was more protecting his group as a whole and not just himself. So it was kind of selfless, if you ask me.
What about the gods? They play a big role in the war. Can you argue their actions were provoked by selfishness, or is there another reason for their involvement?
I would argue that the gods' interference had everything to do with relationships, either kinship, enemies, or allies. For example, looking at Hera, Aphrodite, and Helen and their relationship with Paris, it explains everything. It all started when Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite each reached for the apple. Zeus proclaimed that Paris, Prince of Troy, and thought that he was the most beautiful man alive, would act as the judge and decider of who gets the apple. Hera promised him power, Athena promised him wealth, and Aphrodite promised him a beautiful woman in the world, Helen. Paris chose Aphrodite and he met Helen. Here he gained Aphrodite as an ally, but Hera and Athena became his enemy. DeWall writes, "A taste of revenge is the other side of the coin of reciprocity. To act negatively towards stingy individuals suggests a sense of justice and fairness." And that's exactly why Helen and Hera chose to help the Greeks. So they can't call them selfish or immoral for involving in the war. They were just angry and vengeful.
Throughout the epic, the gods could also be seen as selfish, although they try to help their kin and their family and those that they have relationships with. The war is more of a game to them. Think of a game of chess. Each piece has a specific role throughout the game. The gods, however, do not let the game take its toll. Instead, they are prolonging the war for as much time as possible. Had the gods let the war run its turn, how would the war have ended? Would it still be in the Greeks' favor? Each particular god in some way made choices, not because of what was happening between the Greeks and the Trojans, but because of the fight with another god.
When looking at the war as a whole, couldn't one argue that the war itself was built around selfishness? The war started because two men were fighting over one woman. Is it selfish of Paris and Menelaus to risk the lives of hundreds of men over one woman?
The Wall writes, the ultimate reason for group life is an idea with general applicability. Animals live in a group to better defend themselves, and that is exactly what Menelaus and Paris are doing. They're using their group to defend themselves. I'd argue that it wasn't selfish. De Wall argues that that's a perk of living with a group of people. He says that animals live together so they can defend each other and they can fight for each other, and that's what Menelaus and Paris did. They used their group of people they live with to help defend themselves. It was up to Menelaus to fight for the honor of his woman and his country. So Paris disrespected him by taking her away, so he had no choice but to fight. And his men, being his faithful citizens, had no choice but to help him. So it wasn't really selfish.
The war between Menelaus and Paris is considered to be selfish. When we think about a man stealing another man's wife today, it's considered an affair. Also, the woman has the choice to choose who she wants to be with. When you think about this war, they put so many men's lives on the line just for their selfish gain. It also became less about Helen and more about the gain of land, money, women, prizes, and honor, which is also selfish when considering that a war should be because of a conflict, not because of a selfish gain. Franz de Waal states, animals do not dampen competition for the sake of the group. The good of the group is a factor only insofar as it overlaps with that of the individual. Without the individual's selfish reasoning, the advancement of the group would not happen. It starts with a selfish gesture or thought. It's your decision to decide if one can exist without the other.